Hey, Steve, the Clippers are right with you guys in terms of having one of the most effective offensive groups in the game. Defensively, what do you feel like has to be the primary focus, in particular, coming off of Sunday's game?
Well, Sunday was ugly. So, back to basics, sprinting back in transition, loading to the ball, showing a crowd. Let's start there. That was really poor against the Wiz. So, very fundamental changes and refinements, getting back to the basics, I think is step one.
Greg Logan with Newsday.
Steve, is it too soon for Norvell Pell to be able to work in and give you some rim protection because he hasn't played in a year? I mean, how do you fit a guy like that in?
I'd say probably too soon, but we can't say that forever. So we want to make sure we get a chance. We haven't been in the gym with him, to be honest. We were on the road, and then we had the day off yesterday after the road trip, and we just got in. The guys just got in this evening for the game. So we got a couple practice days coming up where we can get a look at him and have a much better kind of scope of how ready he is and when he could jump in there.
Malika Andrews with ESPN.
A couple of guys after last game, Steve said that the game against Washington was one of those you just kind of have to throw away and move on from. For you, what's the balance between looking back at that and needing to desperately learn from it, but also not put too much stock into it and, as they said, throw it away?
I can understand what they're saying about throw it away in that the last, few seconds of the game you could throw away, but the rest of it for me is something we got to learn from. I think there was a mentality that we were going to win, and therefore we gave away a endless amount of possessions defensively because we felt like we were in control until we weren't. And so that lesson I think has to sink in, and then, getting back to fundamentals that were largely, really poor, and we broke down a lot of them. So I think it was a great opportunity to teach. And I think that, you can throw away the emotions of losing the way we had lost in the very end, but you have to grow and build on the mistakes we made, especially in a season like this where we just don't have time to practice. And, the guys needed a day off after the trip. And so they had their day, but we can't just sweep it under the rug because it was a day off and now we're playing tonight. So it has to be addressed, and we have to learn from it, because every time we play is an opportunity for us to learn and grow, and especially when we make mistakes like we did against Washington.
Is it easier to not have that mentality of, well, we're just going to win when you're going up against a team tonight that's won 10 of their last 11 games versus the worst offensive team in the league, or excuse me, the worst record team in the league?
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure our guys will be on guard tonight. They're playing a fantastic basketball team. The names on the back of the jersey and the front of the jersey, I think we'll have them appropriately ready mentally. But it's just the message is that you can't turn it off and on like that, and that every game is an opportunity for us to improve. So, we can't. I feel for the guys. We're playing more than every other night. There's no fans. You can't leave the hotels, the COVID testing and protocols, but it's the same for everyone. And so we have to adapt to our environment and be able to use every time we're together as a growing experience, because it's not going to be like a regular season where we're going to have, time to practice, every week. A lot of times it's just going to be film and walking through, and we've got to lock in on those, and we've got to make do on all the opportunities to learn about who we are and where we're going.
Brian Lewis with the New York Post.
Hey, Steve, this is probably not a new issue, playing up to, quote, elite teams and playing down to some of the teams with the worst records. I'm curious if you've been around these guys long enough to be able to tell when a message is being received. And I know every team's different, so that's why I'm asking. Are you able to tell whether that message is kind of drilling down into their skulls yet, or?
Not yet, and I think that's not uncommon. Especially in a season like this where the message is sent, the message is received, the message dissipates, and you got to bring it back and tie that fabric back together. And so that's normal for the NBA. It's this increasingly common, I think, in a season like this, and in our scenario where we basically have a new group with no training camp coming together and trying to figure it out as we go. So we have to, like I keep saying, look at the season as our, as in one part as our training camp, and we're going to continue to get better because, you would, in a regular season, you would have more time in training camp by far than we will have this season to practice. So that we, like I said, we got to be creative, we got to be diligent, and we got to use whatever space and lessons we can to improve.
Christian Winfield with the New York Daily News.
Hey, Coach, we kind of talked about this pregame before the last game, but you guys did win 4 in a row before the wheels kind of fell off in the last game. Are you able to kind of still look at those 4 games and say, hey, we did some good things? Or does that last game kind of just disregard everything that you guys had accomplished up until that point?
No, I mean, I think we've won 8 of 11, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not, a disaster, but we have to take pride and it has to hurt, and we have to, to really work hard to earn our place. And that wasn't good enough on Sunday, and everyone knows it. And so tonight we got to go out there, win or lose, and just feel proud of the way we approach the game and the effort we put forward and the fight and the connectivity. And then we'll talk about the performance. But those are the things that we have to push forward to build. That is our character. That is who we are. That is how we respond to a challenge every night. And whether you execute or don't is secondary to the approach you take.
Young Suk with ESPN.
Hey, Steve, I was wondering, as a great passer that you were, now you look at the Clippers, they don't really have a traditional point guard who's like a playmaker, but yet their passing has been really good and their ability to create open shots. I was wondering how much of a better playmaking have you seen out of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George this season, and the ability for them to get all these open shots that they've been getting?
Well, I think they've always had the ability to play make, both of them. They make each other and others better. I think that there's a real level of trust with them right now because their teammates are shooting the ball so well and the pieces are fitting together. So they are doubling down a little bit on their playmaking, whereas maybe in prior years they would lean into the scoring a little bit more. So, they're playing great basketball. They're sharing it. They're making plays for the teammates, and they're making each other better.
Lawrence Murray with The Athletic.
Good afternoon, Steve. Along those same lines, if I recall correctly, you were at the Knicks Clippers game at Staples last January, courtside, and I wanted to know if you remember anything from that experience, like just watching the Clippers from that particular game, and if you see any sharp differences between what that team looked like then and what they look like a year later now.
I don't have any specific. I was there to watch my godson, so I had the RJ cam on, but I think that I feel like this is a group in the Clippers that they learned a lot from last season, and that you can tell that there's there's a newfound understanding and resolve, and it feels and looks different than it did last year. So hats off to them. They put themselves in a position where they're playing great basketball, and they look finely tuned and improved on last season. And I think the results speak for that.
Mark Medina with USA Today.
Hey, Steve, good to see you. When the Harden trade went down, what were your initial expectations of just what that first set of games would be like, 8 to 10 games, and how have you seen that play out so far?
Well, largely it's been great. He's an incredible player. I know we see his scoring and playmaking ability, but his intelligence is special. Defensively as well. He sees it, he reads it, he has an understanding at that end of the floor as well. So he's also been, I think he's in a position where he's grateful for this opportunity. He wants to win and he's willing to sacrifice. And so his leadership's been great. And as he plays himself into shape here, his production's been amazing. I think he was Conference Player of the Week this week. So he's been incredible to add to our group, and we're fortunate to have him.
And last question, Steve Lichtenstein with WFAN.
Hi, Steve. You may have addressed this before, so I apologize if I missed it. But when a team has trouble containing ball handlers, sometimes they try zone. Your team hasn't really done it for more than a couple of possessions. So I just wanted to ask if there was a philosophical difference. I mean, Jacques Vaughn used it a lot last year, and especially in the bubble.
Yeah, no, we want to go zone. We want to mix it in. just been one of those tricky things that you're caught a little bit in between not having much time to prep. We prepped it one day because we've spent most of our time refining our basics. And so, when you're caught between, like, do we change because we're not good enough at this, but we know we're going to have to be good enough at this? So do we diversify now, or do we diversify in sequence when we've actually gotten a good understanding? So that, I think, has slowed down the process. And this is just one of those years that it's, 6 of one, half dozen another. You could throw in multiple defenses right now, and hopefully over the long term you improve it and figure them out. But you could also say, let's get ours down pat. And with James here, we were looking at a new group and trying to get that down, before going zone. And now we've put in the zone. We just haven't been able to lean into it yet. But that is something that is on our horizon, and we are philosophically in tune with.